How you doing, Apple Sheep? It's dream crushing time, because I've seen a lot of people comment on how they think Apple switching to their own in-house design processors and Apple Silicon and all that is going to allow for cheaper MacBooks overall, and we're going to start seeing $800, $600, $500 MacBooks out there. And that totally could happen. It's a possibility. I don't know. No one knows. Don't believe anyone who claims they know what's going to happen, but I'm here today to speculate on why I think that's not going to happen, and it's probably in your best interest to believe in me to set your expectations at a low level, because then if this does end up happening, you'll be very, very surprised and happy. So here's why I don't think Apple Silicon will result in cheaper Macs. Let's begin. Alright, first off, I know some of you probably got really excited when Apple launched the Mac Mini Dev Kit, because they're like, hey, 512 gigs of storage, all that RAM, and the A12X chip, and it was only $500? Yeah, Dev Kit prices, guys, that's not really reflective of what consumer grade prices would be, because for one, you had to write a 3-paragraph essay on why you think you should get a Mac Mini Dev Kit to get your hand on one, and the people who bought those Dev Kits don't get to keep them, okay? So when you agree to buy one of those, you actually have to return them after a certain amount of time, and you don't get your money back, okay? So it's not $500 for that Mini, it's $500 to access that Mac Mini for a certain period of time, and then the dev kits have to go back to Apple. Otherwise, Apple will probably sue you to death. So don't expect that $500 dev kit to be the norm, or a Mac Mini with an Apple Silicon chip in it to come out and be $500. Again, it would be really amazing if it did, and I want that to happen. I'm all with you there. In fact, I'm all with you on the amazingness that would be a MacBook SE of sorts. SE typically just stands for special edition, but now we're slapping it on tech products whenever we mean, please make this cheaper. So for instance, if we did have a MacBook, please make this cheaper, it would essentially be a very basic bare bones laptop, maybe even make it of AirPod style plastic. I know, how could Apple go this far? But hey, I mean, we don't need to worry about fans, right? We don't have to worry that much about thermal management, because if Apple was making a super cheap dumbed down MacBook that just covered the basics, just like we have the super cheap dumbed down iPad that's like $330 or $250 on Amazon half the time. If we could get an equivalent of that in a MacBook form, oh, it would be so cool, because we know that even the entry-level Apple Silicon chips that they could put in the Mac lineup, even if they wanted to throw something old in there, like an A12X chip from an iPad Pro, even then, the performance on it would still be pretty decent. You'd be able to edit videos and manage your basic productivity tasks with word processing and PowerPoint, or if you're an Apple sheep, you use Keynote, and do all the basic stuff a laptop needs to be, and essentially we could have a Safari book, right? It's like a Chromebook, but it's a Safari, no, that's horrible. You know what I mean. A bare bones laptop running Apple Silicon. I'm in such favor of that, but something tells me the reason Apple prices MacBooks the way they're priced is not simply because Intel is very expensive, and there's no way that they can put an Intel processor in a MacBook and make it sub $1,000. The truth is, yes, using Intel and using third-party components for Apple's machines, it does add to the overall cost, and designing things in-house and being more vertically integrated, that will help bring the price down. But the truth is, if Apple wanted to make an $800, $700, $500 laptop years ago, they could have. It was not a matter of Intel not making a cheap enough processor, because there are Intel-powered laptops out there that are very cheap, and they have very basic specs, but I think a lot of the money that you're paying for when buying something like a MacBook Air, even the cheapest MacBook available, it's still going a lot to the thinness factor. It's going towards those speakers, the display, and that aluminum design language, and making it so thin and light and portable, and Apple cares about that. And unless Apple Silicon is gonna make Apple suddenly not care about thinness or design or the premium feel that MacBooks offer, I don't expect that to change. Yes, absolutely, Apple Silicon will help Apple save money, and I do think that means that a lot of us will be able to buy the base model MacBook Pro ARM or the base model MacBook Air, and we'll probably not need to upgrade them as much as we do now, because the performance will be so great, we'll get such great speeds and export times and that kind of thing, that you won't feel the need to upgrade the MacBook and get the higher performance processor. Or perhaps Apple Silicon will help bring costs down, but Apple will make the default storage and RAM configurations a lot higher, which is kind of a win-win when you think about it. It means that prices could stay the same, but instead of having 256 gig or 512 gig by default, maybe we'll start having 1 terabyte of storage by default, and maybe we'll start having 16 gigs of RAM by default, which is sad that it still isn't in today's day and age. But I'm pretty sure Apple is going more for value with Apple Silicon than they are overall cost. The point here is not necessarily to make all Macs cheaper, it's to make high performance Macs more affordable, but base level pricing, I expect to still stay where it is today. So on the plus side, I don't think Apple Silicon will result in Macs getting much more expensive. Oh god, I hope that statement doesn't age horribly. It's like, okay, we decided to make our own custom CPU and GPU for the new redesigned iMac, so now it's going to be worth $30,000. But there's no other computer on the market that can match its performance, so you can't even get mad. Yes, I can. Apple, I can get mad about that. Don't do this, all right? It would be amazing if with all the Apple Silicon Macs, the entry-level prices stayed the same. We just have much better internals, much better storage, much better graphics cards, and the RAM could actually be decent for what you're paying for. And overall, I hope you guys know this is not me saying Apple Silicon is a bad move for Apple. It's all good stuff. We're only getting better Macs from here on out. macOS Big Sur is being very compatible with legacy software so far and converting stuff over, so being able to have really high performance chips that I can't wait to see the Geekbench tests of, because we're seeing insane results from the iPad Pro, and that's with a low powered chip. Now imagining a much more heavily powered chip that Apple designed, I can't wait to see how good it is. In fact, I think a lot of what people need a MacBook Pro for now will probably be capable of being done on a MacBook Air in the future because of how big the performance gains will be, while still having great power efficiency and not having to run fans as much anymore because there's better thermal management. Macs are only getting better, but the one thing I don't think necessarily Apple Silicon means is cheaper entry-level prices. And once again, really hope I'm wrong on that. I would love to see an $800 MacBook or a $500 MacBook SE that covers the basics, no nonsense, no fancy features, maybe even the speakers suck. It's got like one USB-C port or something like that. It's super basic, but it would be super affordable. I think our best chance at an affordable Mac is probably the Mac Mini, ironically, but even with adoption of Apple Silicon, I don't think the Mac Mini is going to get significantly cheaper. I think they're just going to update the internal specs, be like, okay, now it has a P3 chip, but now it also comes with 1 terabyte of SSD by default. It comes with 16 gigs of RAM by default, and it's still $800, so great value, but entry-level prices, I'm pretty sure if you're spending under $1,000 on a laptop, Apple's going to recommend you go with an iPad, because iPads kind of dominate the sub $1,000 category. That's where you have the iPad Air, which is getting refreshed soon, and the budget iPad and the iPad Pros, which even with their Magic Keyboard still peter out at about $1,000, but they have so much more options than the MacBooks do in some ways. Other than software, I mean, you've got Face ID, you've got 120 hertz ProMotion, you've got rear-facing cameras, you've got cellular support, you've got iPadOS getting more functional day by day. So if you're in the I don't want to spend $1,000 on a laptop territory, the iPad Air 4 is probably what Apple's going to recommend you do. They're not going to make a $700, $600 MacBook that's cheap and turned down and has a non-laminated display or something, because if there's one moral I can teach you guys in the month of September about technology, it's that hinge equals expensive. If a device has a hinge, even if every other aspect of the device is boring and the specs suck, if it has a hinge, that instantly adds $1,000 to the product. iPad Pro, great speakers, great biometrics, great performance, great speed, great display, starts at around $800, right? Okay, cool. But now, if we designed a laptop that had all of those great specs, and now it has a hinge, now it's $1,800. Or, let's turn our iPad Pros into 2-in-1s. Let's just do that by adding a hinge to them with the Magic Keyboard. Boom! Extra $350, okay? Because hinges are expensive. Galaxy Fold has a smartphone experience of like a $600 phone and a $400 tablet, so that equates to $1,000, but now there's a hinge, which is an extra $1,000, so in total, it's now $2,000. Apple has great value iPads, but then we look at the MacBook Air, and it's like, these specs suck. Well, MacBook Air has a hinge, okay? So hinge means expensive. Anyway, let me know if you guys think I'm wrong. I'd love to be proven wrong here, but just want to be real with you. This is your Apple Sheep here. I'll see you in the next one.